Hi and welcome to my channel. I am so excited to show you how I built this addition with the 2 floating shelves and this cabinetry here. So I am trying to get this done. So if you've seen in my first video, I have these kitchen cabinets that I repainted, which I love, but I have this like awkward space right here that just feels really empty and underused. So I am putting in this cabinet here. Now this cabinet I got from Home Depot. It's just one of those cheap pre-made ones. So it cost me like $130 for this. As you can see, the style is not the same as my other cabinets. I mean, it's similar, but obviously not. So I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna kind of hack this Home Depot cabinet. Alright, so before you get started, you really need to make sure that everything is level. So one of the first things I did was take just a 1/4 inch plywood that I had and shivved it underneath to make sure that my top was level and that it is flush with this as well from side to side, because I will be putting in a filler piece here. Now, I don't have a lot of skills, like at all, when it comes to cabinet making, but I'm just trying to make it work. All right, so when I open this is something that I noticed. So it does come with this shelf, but I'm not going to use that. On this side, I'm planning on doing a trash can pull out. And this side will just be a large space for storing things, some of my large appliances that don't fit. So that's kind of the idea here. However, with the pull out trash, I don't really want it just kind of open to this side of the cabinet, but I really liked having this open drawer, so I can't really completely divide this, so I'm gonna kind of makeshift this as I go. So my plan is I'm gonna measure everything out, and then I'm going to end up buying this at Home Depot and having them do all the cuts for me, because they do all your cuts for free. They're awesome and amazing. So I'm gonna get a piece of plywood that fits right in here from top to bottom all the way to the back. And I just want it to be able to go in right here so that I can nail it in and screw it in. So I'm gonna screw it in from the back and the bottom, and I will nail the front with brad nails. And I'm also going to add in a 2-inch piece right here all the way down, so I have that nice section that divides these two sides. And also so it matches my other cabinets, because how this closes, it goes kind of perfectly together, and I am not going to do that. I'm going to make sure I have a half-inch gap, and basically I'm taking off these doors and I'm remaking them. As you can see, they're shakers, but they've got this little groove to it that mine do not have. Same thing with the drawer here. So if I come over here, and you can see my drawers are completely flat, so I'm going to redo the face. I'm just going to take it off, get a beautiful piece of wood, and just cut it exactly to the measurements of the other one. And here you can see this is a 3.5 inch shaker style, and it's very simple. So I'm going to probably get like a 1/2 inch plywood and make the door shape, and then I'm going to get a 1/4 inch, and I'm going to kind of place it on top so the front looks the same, even though the back will not have this shaker side at all. It's going to be just a flat piece, which is fine for me. I don't have all the tools to make this, so I'm just making do with what I have. So I want to show you all the other things I'll be cutting. So I am also going to measure from here down and get some extra wood. I don't know if it'll be 3/4 or 1/2 inch or whatever. I'm just going to use whatever extra I have from the boards that I buy. So this I measured out to be about 2 1/4 on each side, all the way down to this point here. And then of course I'll do the toe kick here that I'll buy and get cut. So those are some wood pieces that I need. Typically when you're doing this filler piece, you kind of like screw it in on the side, but that's not really going to work with how tight of a fit this is, and just me not wanting to to screw in from this side at all and have to worry about that. So I'm actually just going to put a piece of plywood right here and just kind of have it sticking out, and then put this piece in and use the brad nail gun down. I feel like that'll be a lot easier for me in my skill set, and it'll still make it look right. So I'm gonna plan on doing that. All right, so I'm gonna make sure I get all my measurements, and I'll write it down what I did here. If you end up buying this exact same setup, then you can use that to make your doors as well. Just a quick little note here, since I said I was gonna get a 1/2 inch gap, that means I'm taking off a little bit of this door side. All right, so that is the plan. So I'm gonna get to measuring, and then I'll get all the wood set up, and then I'll be able to screw and nail and get everything ready to go. I planned out every single one of my cuts using the 3/4 plywood, a 1/2 inch plywood, 1/4 inch plywood. This is one of the most important things you can do, especially if you don't have a table saw at home and all those tools and you're having Home Depot cut it, because they do all the cuts for free. They are amazing. Just have it all planned out to make it easier and faster on yourself. All right, so I got my wood cut finally. So here I have this large piece here, which will go straight up and down to kind of divide my sides. It was cut just a tad bit too big, so I'm gonna sand it down just a bit. It's less than 1/8 of a difference, so just a little bit of sanding. And then this piece will be right here, and I'll just nail it into that middle divider. So that's what's going on there. And then over here, I want to show you how I did my fake shakers. Oh, you're fine. Yeah, you got it wet. All right, so here I have, so I needed the total width to be about 3/4. So I did a 1/2 inch of this plywood here. I'll put it in the link what I used. I could have gotten a nicer one, but this was $8 cheaper, so I went with it. And then I got the nice birch 1/4 inch plywood to put on top, so then that makes my total about the 3/4, so it matches everything else that I have. And so I cut mine to size to match kind of my shaker design. So that's kind of what's going on with the doors, which I'm pretty excited about how it's looking, already being pre-cut at the store. It is pretty accurate and I'm pretty happy with it. So what I'm going to do is, before I really sand the edges and kind of clean up all the plywood stuff by putting, I'm gonna put wood filler, wood putty, whatever you call it, and then sand it down to make a nice smooth edge to be painted. But here I need to attach these, and so it's not super deep, so I'm not going to use my nail gun because my nails are a lot longer. So what I'm going to use first is wood glue, because wood glue is awesome and is super strong, and I'm gonna make sure I'm using clamps to really make sure it's a tight bond. So that's the plan here. Let it sit overnight before I really mess with it. And then I'm just gonna kind of work on this section, putting that middle thing in, and then when I get to there, then I'll start doing the fillers on the side. And then I also have a piece for the toe kick, which I could have bought an actual like toe kick, but it's a 1/4 inch, so I used the extra 1/4 inch plywood here and just cut it out to size. And so I will make sure that I get that sanded and painted to match this cabinet. So that'll be like a last thing. I don't even know if I'll show it in the video because it's so simple and kind of self-explanatory. Over here I am cutting out my little shiv that I'm making to put underneath the cabinet to make sure that it is perfectly level. As you can see here, it's got a little bit of a crooked edge, but if you just tilt it back just a bit, then all of a sudden it lines up nicely, and it kind of takes care of that gap. Without it, there's not really a gap here, but then there's a huge gap here. But by just tilting it back a bit, it's a lot more flush. This in general is just kind of curved because it's cheap wood. You know, that's just what you get for it being cheap. All right, so that's what we're gonna get done, and when I get to the next part, I will show you. Well, instead of using clamps, I was gonna put heavier wood on top, but then I thought, you know what, if I put the heavy wood on top, I can't see. So I have lots of apple juices and water gallons, so I am using this to make sure that it is holding down nice and tight, that there's no bowing, while this dries for the next 30 or so minutes. And then once this one is done, I will move on to the other one. But I don't know, it feels very momish to me to be doing things with all of your kid stuff. First, when I'm painting the cabinets, I use the Mega Blocks, and now here I am using apple juices. So here I'm trying to fit in the pieces. Back here you can see that I went ahead and screwed it in, and I just had a 1/4 inch piece there to make sure I went through the studs that I marked. So there from there. So it is nice and tight. This is this one. This piece is just shimmied in there, but I plan on gluing it down and possibly putting a brad nail or two. So here, when you're typically doing fillers, you probably want to just like screw in the side or screw this way, but I wanted to put the cabinet in first to really get this nice and tight. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take one of these extra pieces that I have, and I am going to use wood glue and put it right here. So then I can put wood glue and then some brad nails on this side to get it nice and tight. So I'm going to do that on both sides. So I wanted to try this both ways, with laying the wood with kind of the smaller edge out and then kind of flipping it and giving myself more room. I glued them both and they both were extremely strong, so it doesn't really matter which way you do it. I just kind of did it this way just so I could see what difference it would make. I also glued here and there was a tiny bit of a gap, so I'm going to sand that and just kind of fill that in with a tiny shim that I had, and then I'm going to make sure to fill in everything with either the wood putty or maybe even just some spackle and kind of fill in all of those gaps. Here on the wall I have marked a couple of places. It's probably difficult to see, but where I'm wanting the two shelves is I'm wanting it to match the other shelf in my kitchen. So I'm just going to match the level up at the same, and here you can see my framework for the shelves. So I got this all cut and did it all at the same time. So I'm going to do a couple of 11-inch pieces across to give it support and do a front and back. So I'm just doing the framework for the shelves, and then I'm going to cover it with plywood so it looks like a floating shelf. Right here I already filled everything in and have primed everything. Over here I've primed the toe kick piece that I've cut out, my doors, my drawer, and all of that is ready to go. Alright, so my paint has dried. It's looking really good. You know, the toe kick fits nicely. I just have to kind of push it in over there and I'll nail that in later. Everything's looking great. I will eventually put some caulk in that corner. So here are my doors and drawer. So as you see here, you can see the wood grain, and that's just because of the wood I picked. So if you don't want to see it, pick a different piece of wood. And now I'm going to install the hinges. So I went ahead and did practice one right here, fit and works great. I even tried it out on this side to make sure. And I just am using this jig right here. Alright, so I did the left side first since that's the one with the hinges, and now that I'm putting the garbage can in, I can just slowly make sure that that one fits correctly rather than doing the garbage side and then the hinges, because the garbage one I can kind of move it up and down and turn it around, and it's not really going to matter very much. And then when I installed the drawer, I made sure that it was nice and even. And now to put my husband to work, he's just making sure everything is level while I'm hanging out with the kids. So I already marked where everything was supposed to go, so not as difficult for him. But you can see how the frame is just an open frame. Make sure that you screw as much as you can into the studs and then a little bit on the wall as well, so it can hold a lot more weight. Now here on the frames, I only did them about 1.5 inches, maybe about 2 inches worth, because I wanted them to be nice and thick. And here you can see that I have 2 different screws on each of the studs so that it is more secure. Now this next part took me a lot of time. I just kind of quickly got these cut at Home Depot at 13 inches because I wasn't sure exactly the measurements that my shelves would end up being. But the wonderful thing about a 1/4 inch plywood is you can just use a box cutter, razor blade, measure things out. You can cut it and then, or you can score it, you know, cutting through a little bit of it, and then you can just snap off what you need and then sand the edges down really nice. So I made sure to do that for the front and the back, and then I also made sure to do that for the front piece as well. Now originally I was going to do these nice and flush, and then whatever tiny 1/4 inch was showing, I was going to use a birch band. I'm forgetting the word right now, but I was going to iron that on and just kind of seal it that way. However, this was so thin that I just decided to sand it at an angle, approximately 45 degrees, with also the front piece. So then when I put the front piece on, it'll be relatively flush. I might have a couple of gaps because I did this with a sander and not with an actual table saw to give me that perfect edge, but then I'll just fill it in with some nice wood putty and sand it down and stain it, and hopefully you won't see anything. But yeah, make sure you're securing everything with wood glue and keeping it nice and tight. Originally I wanted to add some brad nails in as well, but just slowly doing wood glue and clamping it, it is so strong, and then I don't have anything else to fill in. So I ended up not using my brad nail gun at all for this. So I am using minimal tools, and this is so much easier than I thought it would be. Let's just say it took a whole nother week to make a decision, but eventually I decided to find and search and hunt for a matching granite to match the rest of my kitchen. Luckily I did. It was called white ice, and of course my white ice is from years ago, so there is a bit of a difference. On one side it's light enough and it looks like it's matching, but then on the other side of my granite it's much darker, and so the new slab looks a little bit too white. But it is definitely the same granite. It's got the same coloring, everything to it. So I decided to order some of the granite to put there just to complete the look rather than doing laminate. So I filled in all of the gaps with a sandable wood putty. I used Minwax, and it worked pretty well. It was really easy to sand it down and then to stain it. I ended up going with a gray stain just because the way it looked on the wood and how it matched my floors. Because I've got some gray and browns and some lighter tones, but this just made it look better. It doesn't actually look gray, but it's just bringing out some gray tones. I'm just super happy with it. The granite came and I'm loving it. There's a little bit of a gap here between the wall, but I might do a backsplash, so I'm not worrying about that right now at all. So after doing a quick stain on here, I used about 3 coats of polyurethane, and it looks great. It feels great. It's really durable. And I got some cute decorations, all from Walmart, except for this fruit stand I got from Hobby Lobby, 40% off. But everything looks really great. Even the gaps aren't too bad. The bottom I had to split in half. But I am really proud of this project. I ordered online some handles that were very, very similar to mine and matched them. Here you can't even visually see where that gap is with that new piece of wood. Of course, you can see the gap on the other side with the older piece of wood, but it's nice and flush and everything just works and looks beautiful. And I am so proud of myself for doing this, and I just can't believe it turned out as well as it did.